You, okay, you got it?
Yes.
Yeah, it says it's recording.
Woo, very good. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. If I drop out, please, Quentin, if you could just pick it up. Sweet.
Sounds good.
Well, wonderful. We'll go ahead. And this is Transfer 101, our workshop celebrating National Transfer Week. So we'll go ahead and get started by introducing ourselves. My name is Ezra Levlin. I serve as the Assistant Director for Admissions, Records, and Transfer Services. And with me today, I have the pleasure to work with Quentin and Missy.
I am Quentin Overacker. I'm Director of Admissions, Records, and Transfer Services at IVCC. Missy, who and what are you?
I do not know. I am Missy Killian. I'm a counselor at IVCC.
Awesome. And so, Quentin, if you could go back one, this is kind of a quick overview of what we're hoping to cover. It's a heavy topic because there's a lot to go through, but we want to give you an overview of a timeline, what's important when it comes to thinking about transfer programs, researching those colleges, and then those university requirements. And then, of course, money, scholarships. So we hope to wrap everything up with kind of the next steps and any questions or anything that we can address.
Okay, cool.
So when we're looking at the timeline, I wanted to provide kind of a monthly breakdown. And so what you're going to see, it varies for each school. So don't think that you have to get this done by this time or if this is what needs to happen. So just think of it as a guide. So we're looking at October, November. Ideally, that's right now. So you should probably start applying to those universities and colleges. And especially with financial aid, universities typically cost a ton more than your community college. So be thinking about that, have those conversations, but most importantly, get it done. Really, December is a time where you're going to want to continue to look at your email, your student portal, whatever platform they encourage you to check your status. And so that really gives you a better idea of what's missing, what important documents, what important dates are coming up, so you can keep an eye on that. Then the new year, so January, you're going to be, and again, this could be either before or during this time, but you want to start thinking about the scholarship opportunities. And what happens is typically a university or college will have a search engine where you can enter what scholarship you're looking for your specific major, you're a transfer student, and it'll populate what you would be then eligible for. So check that out. In February, you want to start really you should be talking to your transfer counselor early on and as often, but this is just, again, touch base with them, let them know what you're taking for the spring, what other courses you can still take at the community college. So March, you're wanting to think about housing, or if that's something you're interested in, but you want to do it early again because everyone else is probably looking for housing or living on campus. April is really a good time to be thinking about what are the last minute things I still need to tie up, whether it's sending transcripts, setting or scheduling your orientation and registration, and then any of those like enrollment steps that are still showing incomplete on that portal or your timeline. And then June, July, August, it all varies. That's when you actually go to that university for your appointment or orientation day, or heck, you're moving down. So that's a quick timeline. I know that's pretty dense, but it gives you an idea what to be thinking about.
And just to clarify, this is the timeline for somebody who the year before they intend to transfer. So if you're coming to IVCC for 2 years, this would be the timeline for their second academic year at IVCC. We're going to talk a little bit later about things you can be doing pretty much your entire time at IVCC. So we'll get into that. And this is one of them, really. Before I turn it over to Missy, I just want to state the importance of meeting with one of our counselors. Whether or not you know exactly where you want to transfer to, or even what your major is, or anything with respect to the process, you need to talk with one of our counselors super early on. And so this conversation, if you know you're eventually going to get a 4-year degree, this conversation should start the first time you meet with a counselor like Missy. So you'll want to talk about what your academic goals are, and you want to begin that conversation of, okay, I'm thinking about possibly majoring in education, and I'm kind of torn between ISU and NIU. It may seem super early to start that, your first semester at IVCC, but it's really important just to get the ball rolling on that so our counselors can help you along and keep you on track for that timeline. And that goes for everything from figuring out which degree you want to earn, to, again, kind of steps along the way for courses and transferring. And so when we talk about that degree, Missy, I'm going to ask you, like, when a student comes in and they know that they want to be a transfer student, what are their degree options and what are the differences between the degrees that they could choose?
Okay, so a lot of times people who want to transfer, they'll come and see us and say, I want to just do my gen eds and transfer. Well, we have degrees designed for transfer, and they are comprised of your general education courses. We have the Associate in Arts and the Associate in Science, and those are the general education associate's degrees that the universities want from us. That's what the universities expect when you go to a community college, that you will transfer in with those general education classes. Our Associate in Arts and Associate in Science are very, very similar, with a couple differences between the two. They will transfer to the state universities as a package. And what I mean by that is that they're not going to pick them apart and say, we'll take these classes, but we're not going to take these classes. The state universities have promised us that if you have the Associate in Arts or the Associate in Science and you transfer in, you start as a junior when you go. A lot of the private schools also take them that way, but some do not. So if you are considering out of state or private school, that's a conversation that we need to have in the counseling center. But let's kind of go over what general education courses are, because that's kind of a catch-all term. But our associate's degrees have different categories in which you have to select a certain number of credit hours, or from which you have to select a certain number of credit hours. So there are 3 courses in communications, for instance. That's your English 1, English 2, and speech. That one you don't have any choices. You have to take those 3 classes. But then we also have categories like math, life and physical sciences, humanities and fine arts, social sciences, global appreciation, and health and wellness. So we work with students each semester to make sure that they are selecting classes out of the different categories that also will help toward their ultimate major down the road. So if you have an associate in science from us and you're preparing to transfer to Northern in accounting, your associate in science will look very different than someone who's going to ISU and major in education, because we are tailoring those for your transfer, which I think we're going to talk a little bit about later. But these are our 2 transferable associates. There's that. Everybody's heard it. Well, community college credits don't transfer. Yes, they do. If you plan on transferring, we put you in a transfer track so that your credits will transfer. We do have some certificates in associate and applied science that are not designed for transfer. So that's why it is important to come and sit down with us. Let's talk about your goals, and let's make sure that the classes you select are going to go the way you want them to go to the university.
So Missy, I have a question. If, let's say, I'm a student intending to start at IVCC, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe business, maybe accounting, maybe psychology, something like that. And so it's kind of a broad array of options. What are you going to tell me with respect to which degree? I guess the question at the start is, how important is it that I know exactly which degree I want to pursue at IVCC?
It's okay if you don't know when you come in. We can kind of keep things general. There are a lot of different categories, and so usually a semester, maybe 2, we can kind of keep things general. But as you start to get ideas about where you want to go and what you want to major in, come and see us so that we can kind of look at, well, if you're thinking that you want to go accounting to Northern, then let's plan this out a little bit so that we're kind of keeping that option open. If you came to me and had 2 different options, I would probably say, let's plan for the harder of the 2 And that way, if you change your mind, we can go to the other option as well, but you still have this option open. That's kind of what we do in our meetings with you. We strategize.
Perfect. Thanks, Missy.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, so once you settle at IVCC and you kind of start taking your courses and you kind of start thinking about, okay, where do I want to transfer to? How do you even start that process? Maybe you've known all along, but you still want to do your research, or maybe you're completely open to finding, one of 10 different schools. So how do we do the research, Azarette?
Yeah, so again, without what's going on, the pandemic, I'd encourage you to visit. But some universities and colleges are doing a great job of finding ways around that. So it could be a virtual tour, virtual Zoom appointment, that kind of thing. Really encourage you to do that, because we are in the business of selling all great things to you. So of course, on our website, we're going to have young people holding hands, celebrating a puppy or something, because we want to make it look like it's friendly. But you have to go to campus to see, is this actually a good fit for me? So do yourself a favor and do anything that you can to kind of put yourself in that setting. That question, ask yourself, is it right for me? Does it feel like I could spend, X amount of years there? This is a funny one, but does the school actually offer your major? Too often, I'm sure Missy and Quentin can agree that students will say, I want to go to this university. And then we mention, well, they actually don't have the major that you're thinking about. Yeah, that's going to be a big one. So be thinking about that. I know that there's social and personal pieces to it, but academically, if it's, again, a huge financial investment, make sure that they offer your major. And do you want to attend a small or large college? I mean, that is different for everyone. I know with classroom size that you're getting at IVCC, you're seeing anything from 5 to 20 or so. You might not see that at a Research One university. So be thinking about that. Or, if that excites you, that's perfect. That's going to be a great opportunity for you to see, okay, I really thrive in this environment. So those are just a couple of things to be thinking about. In addition to that, these are things that you want to either ask a transfer counselor or anyone that you come across when you're really doing that in-depth research. So one thing that as a recruiter out the 4-year, I would always encourage students to ask, or even just tell them, hey, ask for an unofficial transcript evaluation. That is where a professional can look at your transcript and really make sure that each course will articulate transfer to that major and university. And I think visually it helps students to see, oh, that makes total sense. These are the only courses I still need to complete, or this is a requirement that I could complete either at my community college or at that university. I think that's really helpful. Again, what's the average class size for my major? That's important. This one's a good one, I think. What percentage of courses are taught by teaching assistants? And I say that because, sometimes students think they're going to be working with the top-notch research person within their major, and they find that it's actually a teaching assistant. Be sure to ask those questions, because that could be something that you're going to be kind of bummed out knowing that, hey, it's not going to be that person that I thought it would be. And then just what are the opportunities for that major career that you're thinking about? Are they going to align you with someone professionally for an internship? What are you going to be able to take away from that experience? And I always enjoy encouraging students to see if you can shadow a student, again, if the pandemic wasn't a thing. But, you never know. You can get creative and find a way to experience that university or college of your choice.
So once you've done some of the research, for finding the right fit for you, is it, like Azarette mentioned, is it a good fit size wise? Does it have the major that you're looking for? Then you're actually going to start the application process, and you start to have to research the admission requirements. So Missy, I want to ask you, when you talk about this, can you think of any particular instances where a student maybe, applied to a large state school and didn't quite know the full-on process? Maybe they applied to the school and didn't get accepted to the specific program that they're looking for. But I just kind of derailed that a little bit. So I'm going to let you talk about that. And I'll ask the question again.
No, but that's a good point, because admission to a university is, it's not necessarily a horrible process, but there can be a lot of ins and outs that you have to navigate. So most of the universities, to be admitted, you have to have a 2.0, which is a C average. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that you will be admitted into the major of your choice. So within the university, different majors have different requirements in order to be admitted. So a lot of times they will have their own GPA requirements. So you may be admitted to Northern, but you may not be admitted to accounting because you only have a 2.0 and you don't have the GPA that's required to get into that major. So that's what we work with you as you're going through your time at IVCC, to try to make sure that we are hitting those admission requirements for your major. And accounting, again, is a good example, because they, for most of the universities, there are business core classes that you have to get into your major. So you've got economics, accounting classes, the right math, this kind of, and if you don't have those, you may be admitted to the university, but not to your major yet. And guess what that means? Extra time at the university, extra money. So these things are important to know prior to transferring. And so that's why we encourage you to start thinking about this stuff early in the game. Some schools do have like language, like it says on the screen. Some schools do have a foreign language requirement. Some will accept high school. If you had 4 years of high school Spanish, for instance, for some universities, that's sufficient. For some, it's not. For some, you don't have to have a language. And some, like within the universities, some majors have language requirements and others. So lots of ins and outs. Sorry, I probably just scared you all off, but but that's what we're here for.
Well, no, I mean, hopefully you scared people into knowing that they need to talk to you, to talk to one of our counselors and talk to a transfer admissions counselor, because I think you hit the nail on the head with respect to, if you don't do your research, if you don't speak with one of our counselors, if you don't talk to one of their counselors, it may not be a 2 years here and 2 years at the next place, because depending on course sequencing, I'm thinking of a place I used to work where they couldn't start, sorry, my dog is barking. I hope that's not too loud. But anyhow, so you may have to take like that introductory bio, which is then sequenced with the next bio, sequenced with the next, and that may be a 3-year process. And if you don't start that till your junior year, you may be in a situation where you're going to school for 5 years and you didn't have to be, I guess. So once you have decided on the specific college you want to go to, what do you do then, Azarette?
Yeah, so real quick, before we end this, I hope we get to see a puppy, but I don't know if we can arrange that. So students should at least apply 6 months. I showed you that timeline visually. That's important, just so that you are in the loop with that university transfer counselor giving you those updates. You want to review, again, the deadlines, making sure you get everything straightened and paid and whatever it might be. Transcripts, check and see if they want your high school transcripts. Some are like, no, you're transferring from a community college, no worries. But then, there's some that like, yeah, we'll actually give you XYZ credit for whatever course that you have. So be looking at that, and then just find out if there's any other opportunities to meet with that college admission, whoever, advisor. There's also an opportunity where you can do on-site admission decisions. So again, that would be more of non-pandemic world. But again, there's always just all sorts of opportunities if you just ask, and it doesn't hurt to ask. Scholarships are important too. Money, I mean, it's a huge investment, and we understand that students have all sorts of situations. So scholarships are out there. It's just a matter of, one, researching, reviewing, and seeing what's available within that college or university, and see, what do I need to do to actually apply for those? And they all have different deadlines, of course. They're not as easy as like one deadline and then you're good to go. So you want to check that out. You want to check, even your local scholarship opportunities. So maybe a bank, maybe even, IVCC. There's a specific scholarship to take some time, take patience, but all worth it. And then obviously, if you haven't been doing this, keep track of your accomplishments so you can actually talk about those things. And it's going to be weird at first. You're talking about yourself and bragging about all of the great things you've done, but that is what sells really those people that are reviewing the scholarship essay. So it's important to be thinking about those things.
Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about what happens while you're at the community college throughout the process. And so, Missy, I'm going to ask you the answers to all of these. So first things first, let's say I start out at IVCC and I want to be a business major. And then in my second year at IVCC, I decide, you know what, business isn't for me. I want to do psychology. What does that look like with respect to the transfer process?
Unmute. What we try to do in those situations is kind of look at what you've had and what you might need to take for your new major, and kind of see how it lines up and see what kind of shape you're in order to switch gears. And we can totally do that. Sometimes it could add a little time on to your transfer. And sometimes it won't. It really just depends what major you're changing from and what major you're changing to. Some majors have a whole lot of prerequisite things to get in and some don't.
So you kind of touched on this earlier, but what if I come to you and I say, I don't know what I want to study, and I sit down and talk with you before I sign up for classes, but then what if I find myself in that same spot starting in on my third semester at IVCC?
And that happens. And it's okay. You can still get an associate's degree just by taking courses out of the proper categories and having all your credit hours completed. And we do have people that do that, and that's okay. Just know that, if you do land on a major a little bit later, there may be some major prerequisites that you would need to hit before you do transfer.
Okay, so let's say I've done all the research and I'm going to lump these two questions together. You don't know where to transfer and you're stuck between a couple schools. So answer them both for me. What if I have no idea? What do you recommend to a student? And then what if, it's ISU and it's Northern and I just can't make a decision between the two?
I will piggyback on what Azarette said. The best thing you can do is go visit. And I think that can sound a little intimidating to students sometimes, because a university can be a very big place and you don't really know where to go or where to start. All of the universities have transfer advisors or transfer counselors. That's a good phone call to make. Also, if you know what you want to major in and you're trying to decide between 2 or 3 schools, then you can call the department that you're interested in. Like if you want to be a biology major and you're not quite sure which school, I would definitely call the department and see if you can get a departmental tour, as well as a regular general college tour. But a departmental tour is nice because you meet people that are actually working there. You can see them in action. You can look at in this situation, like your labs or your classrooms or your space that you're going to be occupying when you're there. And I think, there can be a huge difference when you make a visit. There can be a different feel. It has to be a fit for you. You can have the most prestigious school in the world, but if it's not a fit for you, it's not a fit for you. Students will ask me, well, which school is better? And I always answer with the one that's a better fit for you. Because it's what you make it, and it has to feel right, and it has to be a place where you're comfortable. So that's what I say. Long answer.
No, it's a good answer. It's necessary. So then finally for this, what if you don't complete an AA or AS? And I'm going to come at this from two different perspectives. So let's say maybe your final semester, you're just having a heck of a time in a particular course and you have to withdraw and you're not going to get that AAS. Or what if, you find that you really have a passion for English and you want to continue to take English courses and you can't quite get the others to fit. What does that do for the transfer process?
It really kind of depends on how far along you are. It is possible for students to transfer early to the university and then transfer any remaining coursework back to get their associate's degree. So we do have students who, for whatever reason, want to transfer early, and then they can still get that associate's degree. But if they have a couple of classes left, they can transfer back to IVCC, and we can say, boop, you have your associate's degree. We also have something. There are sometimes it's in your best interest to transfer early. There are some majors, a lot of times in the arts majors, dance, theater, studio art, that kind of thing. And it's a lot of times it's in your best interest to transfer early, because in those types of majors, you have to have a lot of classes in that art form throughout your career. And so they want you to start in those and grow as an artist in that field. So there are some times that we recommend transfer early. There's also something called the Illinois Articulation Initiative, and it's 37 to 41 credit hours of straight gen ed classes, which you could transfer to the participating universities, and your general education requirements will be met. It's not enough credit hours to put you at junior standing, but it does make for a smooth transfer that way. Again, work with us. We'll help make it as smooth a transition as possible for you.
That's good. So you may have thought I was done asking you questions, Missy, but I am not. So
there aren't any more on the screen, so I think you're done. No? Oh, okay.
So, we did ask students when they RSVP'd for this, share some things that you're worried about. And so one of the kind of common themes that came up, and I think you've already addressed it, Missy, but just to kind of reiterate, a lot of students have listed, well, what if I don't understand the whole process? What if I'm not sure exactly how everything works? What if I miss any of the steps? What would you say to a student who just comes into it and says, it's just so complex, I don't know what I'm going to do?
I would say I felt the exact same way when I was in your shoes. It is intimidating. There is so much to know and so many details. And even as I'm saying all this, I'm like, it's overwhelming. But that's why people like us have the jobs we have. We are here to help students walk through that process from day one. We work with students semester to semester to semester. So we like to equip you with the information you need and the tools you need for success, but we're also here to help you throughout that process. So it's not like we expect you to remember all this. We tell it to you once and then, hey, you're on your own. That's one of the beauties about a community college. We are here for you every step of the way. If you need us, we're here. And so I always tell students not to be a stranger. And if you have any problems, concerns, questions, you come see us. If you did really well on a test and you want to brag about it, I love to hear that too. So we like to get to know our students, and really we are here to help.
So another question, Missy, and I think the three of us could all speak to the success stories, but I'd be curious what you'd say to a student who said, okay, you know what, I went to Streeter High School and then I went to IVCC and I did just fine, but gosh, I'm really worried about how I'm going to do when I get to U of I, or I'm really worried about how I'm going to do when I get to ISU and work in my upper level administration, business administration course. They just don't know if they're going to be able to do the work or if they're good enough. What would you say to that student?
I absolutely love that question, because this is one of my favorite things to brag about. we get reports from the universities about how our students are doing once they transfer. And our students do just as well as the students who started at the university. So we'll get a report of the grade point averages of our transfer students and how they're doing their junior and their senior year. Our students are right on par. Our students are prepared for that major when they go, just like if they had started at that university. So a lot of times people think, oh, it's community college, it's easier. Oh, no, it's not. Our students are academically right on par with those university students. So I love that. I think I'm so proud of that. And I know it is intimidating, especially like, okay, we're intimidating, but then a lot of times students will get with us and be comfortable and love IVCC, and then they're scared to go away. You're going to do fine. You're going to do fine.
I agree. That's a great answer. And then the final thing I want to bring up, I'm actually going to answer it for you, Missy. So no, because you've addressed it already. So the question that we always get, Azarette and I, when we go out to the high schools, when we talk with community members, and you already addressed this, Missy, is, well, what if my courses don't transfer? Because you do hear students who say, well, this course didn't transfer, or this course didn't transfer. What I would say is, if you worked with Missy, or if you worked with another one of our counselors, you don't have to worry about that problem. The students that I do see that have issues with courses transferring kind of falls into two categories. They self-advised, so they kind of picked the courses that they want to take, and those didn't always match up. Or they changed their mind midstream, which, again, changing your mind is not a bad thing, but just talk with our counselors, because they are there. They know the complexities, they know the ins and outs. Missy's already kind of talked about most of those issues. So I would say if you work with Missy or you work with one of our other counselors, you're not going to have that problem. So Azarette, just to kind of finish off this presentation, what are some things that students can be doing pretty much at every step of the way?
You're mute.
I love when I do that. I like hearing my voice. It's soothing. So what can you do now? Students can attend class regularly. So that means virtually. Students could be getting organized and thinking about, whether there's specific classes that they want to be thinking about for future semesters, or even what am I going to talk to, or when am I going to talk to my transfer counselor? Develops good study habits. That's we say it's easy, but once you get those habits down, whether it's really trying to figure out how you manage your time, or reading through a textbook, or whatever it might be, that's going to help you as you move on. For help, you'll be good. I think that was the biggest thing for me. And I think even talking to other students, you'd be amazed. They're like, wow, I never thought I could actually get help at the peer tutoring center, or with any of my essays. It's important to just ask for help. Managing your time, that's huge. I think I'm still working on that. Self-reflecting is important too. Thinking about, what do I really want to walk away with this experience? What can I still do at IVCC? Those type of things. And then again, advocate for yourself, and making sure that, again, I keep saying this next step is a huge investment. Make sure that you're talking to your transfer counselor, asking the questions, and getting the answers that you are needing to make the next decision, or whatever it might be.
Perfect. So just to reiterate what we've kind of said all the way along the way is, reach out to us. Let us know what questions you have. Let us know how we can help you. Like Missy said, let us know if you want to brag about something, or you're just unsure about something. Our email addresses are on there. You can always reach out to us. You can give us a call or set up a virtual appointment, or whatever the case may be. We are here to help. And we have so many fantastic students who go through this process and excel once they get to the university and go on to do really amazing things. So we know that you can do that as well. So For anybody on the Zoom, if you want to chat in any questions that you may have, or shout them out or whatever, that's okay too. But I'm just going to ask Missy and Azarette. So what are, what are some final words that you'd give to somebody who's thinking about the transfer process? They can be uplifting words, or they can be things to think about, whatever. Missy, you go ahead.
I was hoping you'd pick Azarette first. No, I think I've said it, and I'll just kind of reiterate. It can be intimidating, but it certainly can be done. And we are here to help you. And we look forward to working with you throughout your process.
I'm going to share some of the things that I learned by asking students if they had interest in this workshop. And one of the questions of what excites you about the transfer process, and many mentioned getting the process started, continuing my education, getting to move to a new university and experience, new setting, moving toward a bigger goal, just checking out a new environment, and then, a new start. And I think that's so important, that they get to carry everything that they worked for at IVCC to the next place, university, making new friends, just having all of the stuff be new. I think that's really exciting. And again, working with students has been wonderful. I still am connected with so many, and a lot of them say that IVCC
Oh, I think Azarette froze up on us.
really helped them really set the foundation.
Oh gosh. Sorry, Azarette, I think you got cut off. Okay, so I am gonna just, okay. Yeah, so my advice really for any transfer student, it just kind of echoes what Missy and Azarette said. You'll get through it. We're going to help you every step of the way. And it really is an exciting thing. And just reach out. I know I'm kind of the poster child for doing everything the exact wrong way, and it still worked out in the end for me. So, I mean, if I can do it, anybody can do it. And I really do mean that. I did a lot of things wrong, and it did kind of, unfortunately, lead to a little extra time. But in the end, as long as you keep going, as long as you keep working towards that degree, things will happen for you. So, gosh, I think that's kind of the gist of it. And yeah, so thanks to everybody for attending. We're super excited to have done this, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Bye-bye.